Many new features are due to be dropping with the January patch for Battlefield 1. The weapon balance update is probably the highlight feature, the last of the Turning Tides DLC content is coming, and of course we know plenty of bug fixes will be added in as well. But something that might have slipped under the radar and your attention is the addition that is sure to brighten the eyes of many a Battlefield 1 player. DICE is adding a mid-round server balancer. Now, if you've been playing Battlefield 1 for a while, and if you're watching this video about a mid-round server balancer, I assume you will have been, then it won't have escaped your notice that sometimes there are some pretty obvious server balance issues. When players leave mid-round or just as the round starts, this sometimes presents the situation of one team having significantly more players than the other, or in some cases, they will have more experienced, more high-level players stacked into one team, and the other team is filled with players just joining the server, or perhaps less experienced players in general. It's not a great situation really, and the community has been very vocal about the issue for quite some time now. Well, DICE has finally decided to act on the problem. Today, in a post on the Battlefield 1 CTE Reddit page, Jacob Ajmal gave us a few details on how the new balancer system will work. Now, he did preface the post with a warning that the balancer is a brand new feature, and in order to make sure it actually works as intended, DICE need to collect data of it in action live in live servers in the main game once the new patch drops later in January. I mean, they haven't got much time now, but that patch is coming in January. So DICE is confident that it's going to do the job that they want it to do, but of course a live server environment is very different to, let's say, an internal developer-only playtest or even a CTE playtest. There's no way to predict what players will join what servers, and how the balancer reacts to that is something that DICE is going to be monitoring quite seriously after this update drops. Now, if changes do need to be made to the balancer, then DICE will make those changes. If the balancer is broken for some reason, or it's really not performing as DICE intend, then they can switch it off at the back end without the need for a massive game update. It can all be done behind the scenes. So if the balancer really isn't working, it will probably go away and be fixed before it's turned back on. So how exactly will this new mid-round balancer actually work then? Well, Jacob has provided us 3 high-level points on that topic. First of all, it's designed to never move players that are currently in an active party. The team balancer should never kill a player and then move them. If a player gets marked to be moved to the other team, that will happen when they next get killed by somebody, or if that player decides to redeploy themselves. And finally, the team balancer has a set of rules not to move players that are contributing to the team. This is based on the player's score, and the higher score a player has during the round, the less chance that a player will get targeted by the mid-round balancer in the event of a server imbalance occurring. Now, those first 2 points I think are really good. The balancer is specifically designed to keep you and your friends together in a party, and that should mean no interruptions of your marathon gaming sessions on Friday nights. And the balancer will not kill you whilst you're running around trying to get to the next capture point. When you die, if you've been marked by the balancer, you will then be moved to the other team. And I think this is a key feature here. The balancer is not being added to simply maintain pure balance at all times. It's not ruthless. There is a little bit of leeway here. It's been tuned to make sure that it doesn't disrupt your gameplay flow. And I can't tell you how good that is to hear. The amount of times I got killed in Battlefield 4, middle of a gunfight, middle of a kill streak, and I would just be killed by some mid-round balancer and put on the other team, that's extremely frustrating. So the fact that isn't happening here in Battlefield 1 is a good thing. That last point, however, is something I do have a couple of questions about. It states that the balancer will be less likely to move you if you are a high scorer during that round and you're contributing to your team's performance. Do those 2 points have to be met before you're safe and not likely to be moved by the balancer, Or is it that if you're only hitting one of those points, then you could be moved? Because I'd argue if you are a high scorer in the match, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're contributing to your team's performance. We know how easy it can be to jump into a fighter plane and murder everyone on the enemy team, but those kills might not have been around objective points, and therefore they really don't help your team towards a victory. It just helps your score get bigger and bigger. I'm not intentionally calling foul on what DICE has created here. I was just hoping we get a little bit more clarity on that point specifically about player performance. Because if somebody with a massive score is top of the enemy team and they're really not helping their team and their team is actually losing and they could do with some of the better players from the other team, does that mean just because they've got a high score they won't get switched and that team doesn't get the help that they need? It's just something I'd like a little bit more clarification on. Now, one further point that Jacob addresses in this post, and I think it's good that he has mentioned this, it brings into play rental servers, clans, platoons, and small communities that just like to play together all the time. How is this balancer going to affect them? Well, Jacob has said that if a platoon or a clan of people need to use multiple squads when they enter a server, obviously you can only have 5 people within a squad, there might be 15 people all wanting to play together from one clan, how does the balancer make sure that those people stay together? Well, Jacob has said if that platoon and clan wants to play together, they simply need to make a party before entering the server to make sure they're kept together regardless. That's one of the points of the balancer. If you are in a party, you will not be balanced to another team and taken away from that party. Now, rented server owners will also have an additional option added to their lists that will allow them to turn off this new balancer if they so wish for their rented server, but it will be active by default. Now, official DICE hosted servers will have the new mid-round balancer active, of course, once the new January patch does finish updating, so as soon as you start your game, if you're playing on official servers, you will have this new mid-round balancer active. If you choose to play on rented servers with a custom rule set, then you might need to check the settings to see if that mid-round balancer has been disabled or has been left on. Now, from where I stand, this whole mid-round balancer situation, its implementation is a good thing by DICE. A mid-round balancer is something that can help maintain fairer games for everybody, and that improves the gameplay experience for everybody still playing Battlefield 1. Mid-round balancers can negatively affect players as well, because let's face it, no one likes being balanced when they've already started playing for one side and then they get switched to the other side, but this kind of thing has been in place in previous Battlefield games for some time. It just wasn't implemented in a consistent way. Battlefield 3, 4 and Hardline on PC had many rented servers using mid-round balancers, but they were all third-party plugins for server owners, so there were lots of different types of them, all doing different things that had different rule sets. DICE's one here in Battlefield 1 is a one-size-fits-all solution. However, my only issue with this new balancer is how late it has arrived to Battlefield 1. Now, I'm sure if you follow me on Twitter or you listen to my videos at all, you'll hear me harp on all the time about how Battlefield 1 is still a good, healthy game with an active player base. And I stand by that statement because I'm not jaded enough to look at a 6-figure concurrent player count and say that the game is, in quote marks, dead, but there's no denying that the player base has shrunk significantly since the early 2017 days before the French DLC. Now, a mid-round balancer could have done the game wonders had it been developed and implemented back then, potentially keeping players happy that while there wasn't a steady stream of DLC at the time, there was at least a stable and fair server system, keeping games balanced and keeping games enjoyable for everybody. It's great to see the balancer is now here for all the players still playing Battlefield 1, and as I said, there are still plenty of those players out there, but think of the impact this could have had on the player base back then, 8 or so months ago. I think this is another learning for the DICE team surrounding Battlefield 1 and the post-launch support that this game has had. It's been a long and winding road and we have seen some great additions, it's just that the execution and the implementation of all those updates and new features has been a little bit all over the place. But there you are, the new mid-round balancer for Battlefield 1 is coming with the January patch, and we still don't have a release date for that January patch. My guess is January 30th, that's the last Tuesday of the month, Battlefield games tend to be updated on a Tuesday, although recently in the past it's been on a Thursday, so it could happen today, but considering it didn't happen early in the day, which is when patches always come out, I don't think it's coming today, so I'm going to say January the 30th. Let's see if I'm right. But thank you very much for watching, and make sure you leave your comments down below today. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.